I remember growing up in the inner city in Boston uh, as half white, half black, second or third grader or so, and having to take the bus to and from school, a new school actually in the inner city. And I remember being bullied by a small set of little black girls who didn't like my long pigtails, straighter hair than theirs. And so they just, would do little things, pushing and shoving and name calling. And at the time I couldn't really figure out why. Um, so that was a little tough. And I didn't really get a whole lot of support from home. My mom was too busy working and didn't really have much time to deal with that. So I don't think that I pressed her on it too much, but I just somehow I got through it. And I mean, we're talking over 45 years ago. So that was a really long time, but I do remember becoming friends with them, interestingly enough. And I'm not, to be honest, I'm not sure how I managed that, whether it was putting them on ignore at first or striking up a conversation with them, sort of endearing them to me. But I remember that while I thought for so many days that I was going to get beat up, a little shove here and there, I never actually did. Somehow I managed to finesse that and got through it. So I was like, whew, okay, that's done. And I remember back then, bullying wasn't a thing in the way that it is today. So, it was sort of go through it. And even going through middle school, getting on the bus again and having to deal with kids not liking my hair or what have you. I also remember at that point, my mom didn't really get involved, only in that she had a friend of hers come over, a younger man, and he taught me how to box just in case, and I never actually needed that. And my experience with bullying didn't actually last that long, or that's what I can remember. Um, but having to really be on your own, that whole sense of not having a support group behind you and also not having other kids supporting you, we didn't have that. And I know today is very different. I mean, I have twin boys who are 16 years old, having gone through, all the different schools, elementary, middle school, now in high school. And while they never really got bullied, they've seen other kids being bullied. And one of the things that we've always taught them was there's always two sides to the story, and to even have a little compassion for kids who do bully, because they might be coming from a situation from home where they're taking out their anger on other kids, and they actually had a friend who was sort of a bully, but then they figured out what his deal was, and they were able to work with him and help him kind of get through some things. His parents were going through a divorce. So we've always taught our kids to not always just look at the victim as being a victim, but to also try to understand why bullies bully. And so they definitely try to see both sides. And again, as I said, they've never really been bullied, but we've always taught them to be upstanders and not be bystanders. And even today, things have changed so much where there's so many different programs in school. So there's a lot less tolerance for bullying. So that's, I guess in some ways that is good. But there's always two sides. And I hope that even with bullies out there, that we look to the root of the problem, because at the end of the day, kids really are just kids. And if they are bullies, there's a reason. And most likely it's coming from possibly they're getting even bullied themselves. How maybe it's impacted my life, I guess I'm just more sensitive to how people treat one another. So, not really living quite the rosy little childhood experience has really got me to be a little bit more sensitive and aware, and which is where, we've been able to teach our kids what to look out for and how to be compassionate, and show empathy towards others. And I think that for boys, it's a little bit harder to do that, but they've managed to, in some ways, do that. Not having raised girls, and honestly, having been bullied by girls, they can be pretty vicious. So, but in our community, there's not a whole lot of that going on, or none that we can see, sort of in our small community of kids that hang out together. So, it doesn't mean that it doesn't exist. It absolutely does. But I think I would just glean from this whole thing is it's important for me to understand not just the person who's being bullied, but also the person who's bullying. Um, so I think that's kind of it. I mean, in this presentation here, they talk about what advice would you give someone experiencing a similar situation is to try to get to understand the other person's side of the bullier, to have a little bit more understanding and compassion. It might be hard as you're getting shoved around, but I do think that people who bully detect fear in other people and they sort of go after that. So, if you are afraid of that person, then they will most likely come after you for that. So, I don't know really how you not have fear, but you can also stand your ground, tell, school officials, or tell a parent, or tell a sibling, maybe, and how to deal with it. Sometimes parents can talk to the parents or the bulliers, and maybe gain some understanding around that. And that's probably it. I don't have a whole lot of stories, just those couple of incidences where, girls didn't like my hair and they decided they wanted to come after me. So anyway, thank you so much.